miedo. Ayer me mordió un saltón. Sé que debo dar parte, pero Lizzie dijo que si chupas el veneno lo bastante rápido no te infectas. Creí que había funcionado, pero ahora estoy mareada y tengo hambre. Y mucho calor. Tengo hambre, tengo mucha hambre. Ven aquí, Smokey. Gatito bueno, te quiero, Smokey.
Quiero encender un fuego, pero temo que el humo revele nuestra posición. Lo intentaremos mañana. Hoy tendremos que estar juntos. Intentad dormir.
Han bloqueado todas las salidas. Dicen que es una cuarentena temporal, hasta que averigüen qué trabajadores están infectados y cuáles no. Pero he visto esas barricadas. No tienen nada de temporal. No pensarán dejarnos aquí, ¿verdad?
Cuando mi familia murió, cogí el rifle de mi padre y vine a la ciudad buscando comida. Conocí a Charlie justo después de matar a mi primer devastador. Dijo que tenía buena puntería, y tiene razón. Dijo que yo era un resto, igual que él, y todos los demás supervivientes que luchan contra las quimeras. Creo que me gusta ser un resto. Hoy ha muerto mi marido. Solo quedo yo. Creo que podré dar a luz sola. Pero no sé si quiero. ¿Qué clase de vida tendrá mi hijo? ¿O mi hija? ¿Qué mundo es este para mí?
Llevo solo 21 días. No, ¿22? No como desde hace 6 días. Antes el hambre iba y venía. Ahora no siento nada. Veo caras en la oscuridad. Debería descansar. Solo una siestecita. Solo una siestecita. Bueno, muchachos, vamos a dividirnos. Rodearemos a ese hijo de puta y le enseñaremos quién manda. Larry, tú y los chicos tomad el túnel C. Mike, toma el túnel B. ¡Santo Dios! ¡Quítaselo encima! ¡Vamos, carajo! ¡Estoy aquí! ¡Ah! Sargento Mattison, compañía Víctor. Día 6. Estoy completamente solo. He encontrado un nido de francotirador en Washington Square, pero no me quedaré mucho tiempo. Veo a 30 híbridos buscándome, con una docena de autómatas a punto de metérseme por el culo. Me quedan 6 balas. Una granada. Vamos allá. Sargento Mattison, compañía Víctor. Día 3. Lo del metro no fue buena idea. Ya han muerto 4 hombres. Los túneles están llenos de grims y cosas peores. Somos 3 y estamos aguantando, pero se nos acaba la munición. Si logramos llegar a la siguiente parada, saldremos a la superficie. Sargento Mattison, compañía Víctor. Día 2. La batalla no termina. Es un puto baño de sangre. Encontramos a 4 hombres de la compañía Oscar. Esos malditos escuadrones de la muerte se están dispersando para buscar supervivientes. Cuando anochezca nos iremos. Intentaremos llegar al metro. Sargento Mattison, compañía Víctor. Han derribado a nuestro vitol. 3 supervivientes. Estamos a 2 kilómetros de la torre, pero no podemos acercarnos. Hay un centenar de Goliaths y merodeadores a la entrada. No me puedo creer lo que estos cabrones le han hecho a nuestra ciudad. Vamos a retirarnos para reagruparnos.
Las quimeras han cambiado de estrategia. Antes nos capturaban, nos enviaban a centros de conversión y nos transformaban en híbridos o cosas peores. Ahora nos matan y dejan que nuestros cadáveres se pudran. ¿A qué se debe ese cambio? Por desgracia, es un misterio para mí. Para descubrir el plan de las quimeras debo estudiar su historia, su origen, su auténtica naturaleza. Las quimeras son organismos parásitos, guiados por una mente de enjambre. Lo sabemos gracias a Nathan Hale. Después de ser infectado, intentó mantener el control, pero sucumbió ante la mente de enjambre. Es una paradoja trágica. Para entender el plan de las quimeras, hay que convertirse en quimera. Tiene que haber otra forma. He rastreado el origen del virus quimera hasta el impacto del meteoro de Tunguska en 1908. Si el virus se introdujo por medios extraterrestres, la lógica indica que hay algún tipo de quimera en otro lugar del universo. Las quimeras son una especie mucho más avanzada de lo que creía. Eso las hace mucho más peligrosas. Hemos tomado muestras materiales de algunas torres quimeras y estudiando su composición, calculamos que fueron construidas hace millones de años, antes de que los humanos existieran. Pero entonces, algo sucedió. Las torres se replegaron y las quimeras desaparecieron. Estuvieron aquí y luego se marcharon. Un éxodo en masa. ¿Qué motivó este acontecimiento? Los organismos de las quimeras tienen un metabolismo 12 veces más rápido que un humano normal. Esto produce un calor corporal tremendo, por lo que deben usar aparatos de refrigeración para sobrevivir más de unos pocos días. Creo que las torres están enfriando el planeta para hacerlo más habitable para las quimeras. Por desgracia, en el proceso los humanos mueren a millares. Si logramos desactivar la torre de Nueva York, creo que se interrumpirá el flujo energético al resto de las torres y las temperaturas volverán a la normalidad. Debemos dirigirnos a Nueva York. En Bryce Canyon descubrimos fósiles de quimeras más o menos de la época en que se crearon las torres. He denominado a estos fósiles quimeras puras. No son una fusión de ADN de quimera y humano. Evolucionaron en otro lugar y luego llegaron a la Tierra, de algún modo. Creo que estoy cerca de descubrir el plan quimera, pero este viaje a Nueva York es difícil. Debo seguir adelante. La respuesta está aquí, en alguna parte. Hay algo que me preocupa. El suceso de Tunguska marca la reintroducción de las quimeras en la Tierra, millones de años después de su marcha. Si las quimeras son tecnológicamente avanzadas como yo creo, ¿por qué utilizarían un artefacto tan primitivo como un virus contenido en un meteoro? Es un signo de desesperación. Quizás no abandonaron nuestro planeta por voluntad propia. Quizás algo o alguien las obligó a marcharse.
Tengo el honor de contar con el diario del Dr. Malikov. Estoy un poco intimidado. Tardaré un tiempo en comprender todos estos datos. No obstante, un acontecimiento descrito en sus primeras anotaciones parece significativo. Dice que entrevistó a Joseph Capelli después de que matara a Nathan Hale. Según Joseph, Hale dijo una frase misteriosa cuando el agujero de gusano apareció en el cielo por primera vez. Hale dijo, ¿los oyes? Es maravilloso. ¿A quiénes se refería? ¿Qué tienen que ver con el agujero de gusano? Debo seguir investigando. Hay mucho que aprender. En su última anotación, el Dr. Malikov dice que algo luchó contra las quimeras hace millones de años. Las obligó a abandonar la Tierra, a replegar sus torres y cerrar el agujero de gusano. Creo que se trataba de otra raza alienígena, pero eso no es lo importante. Es Hale. Cuando le preguntó a Joseph, ¿los oyes?, se refería a las quimeras puras. Le estaban hablando a través del agujero de gusano telepáticamente. Ahora la Tierra se enfría día tras día. ¿Por qué? Porque pronto llegarán las quimeras puras. Cuando el planeta sea lo bastante frío, millones, puede que miles de millones de quimeras puras surgirán de ese agujero de gusano. Solo espero que Joseph tenga éxito en Nueva York. ¿Quién sabe qué horrores pueden viajar por ese agujero en el cielo? Incluso aunque Joseph logre cerrar este agujero de gusano, cosa que me parece muy improbable, aún tendremos que enfrentarnos a los miles de millones de quimeras que quedan en la Tierra. Esta guerra está lejos de terminar. Debo continuar las investigaciones del Dr. Malikov. Quizás podamos aprender algo de esa sustancia misteriosa que él llama tecnología gris.
Joseph Capelli, our hero, the last sentinel, lives in Haven, Oklahoma with his family, and their primary strategy for surviving the occupation of the Chimera is to hide, to stay hidden, to avoid contact. And unfortunately, during the course of this level, you'll see that you've been found out. A Chimeran terraformer, which is this massive beam from the sky, is descending upon the town. So the winds are whipping. It's so massive it creates its own weather patterns. And you will see a lot of wind and experience the whipping nature of that as the terraformer descends.
In one of these sections in the Haven Town Defense, you're in a junkyard and a new character is introed, which is the Longlegs. They have the ability to jump real high and jump all over the place. And one of the big feelings we wanted to create just in this environment, not only with these characters, but with the standard hybrids, is just the sense of just having to survive. We try to build these spaces a little different than R2 and give them lots of options. You know, you can go up high to the top of a building, you can fight from the ground, and you're just fighting these guys off and trying to hold them back so the rest of town can escape.
Beginning of the game, this is really the Wizard of Oz setup. This is the hurricane happening.
They're just chasing you back to the center of town. You're fighting them off, and they're bringing in more drop ships, and it's just like the whole Chimeran force is just coming down on the player right then and there.
You have a certain gaming paradigm involved when you're fighting those hybrids. You're looking for cover. You're trying to move from cover to cover to shoot these things that are trying to pin you down. This is the complete opposite of having to deal with the whole. Well, oftentimes it starts off with the designer coming up to me and telling me what their needs are. For this particular design, it was Cameron. So he would come to me and tell me what the gameplay is going to be like, the particular powers of it, and then I have to make that fit within the matrix of Chimeran lore and Chimeran design. So I did the initial drawings, and I did a bunch of different heads. Some way more alien, much more original, much stranger. But the stranger ones weren't working because it didn't feel like part of the Chimeran ecology. So I had to dial it back to what we had essentially, which is a giant Chimeran gorilla.
In this case, his particular heat stacks were actually located on his chest and on his shoulders. And so that's why, you know, when he overheat, he rips it off, showcasing like the damages that was done underneath. And it's one of those characters that he changes state from, like, you know, goes on all fours, climbing on things and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
Not only did we want him smashing through the environment, a lot of his attacks are like fire-based air fuel attacks. So he has an air fuel grenade that he can launch out. He can run and stand on top of buildings and fire a barrage of air fuel grenades out. If you get close to him, he'll do a double fist, like smash into the ground and create a big area of effect fire blast. If the player gets close to the Hulk too, and like gets punched by the Hulk, you can get knocked into walls, into cars, and all kinds of stuff. So we really want to make this guy up-in-your-face visceral more than a lot of the other characters that fight it ranged.
This fight in Haven is from sort of the opening level of the game, and it really sets the tone for you in this world. That is, it's dangerous. You're vastly outnumbered, and there's never really an opportunity to feel safe. This is the first step in your journey from Haven, Oklahoma to New York, and as such we wanted to make it a mysterious aspect. Oh my God. We're all gonna die! Start over. Our goal with the boat level was really, we wanted to have actual movement from place to place, actual traversal, since this is a journey game.
The theme for Resistance 3 is actually that of kind of a buddy road movie. So we very secretively and very purposefully put bits of artwork in a level, whether it's an overpass, a gas station, a motel, things that you see and feel when you're on a road trip. Now in 2010 Safe America.
And our goal was to make this, since it's the beginning of the journey, make it really mysterious and kind of take the player through a ride where they would experience kind of environmental storytelling to a level that we really can't do when players are just running through.
Look, Joseph, straight ahead.
The boat level in Resistance 3 has a couple of responsibilities. The responsibility of describing the spaces between the more static levels that you visit.
And so after they leave Haven, they come across a boat and they start traveling on a river, and they run into kind of the Mississippi, and they run into this town.
Oddly enough, there is a town that would be great if it was underwater named Venice, right next to the mighty Mississippi. So there's a wonderful little town named Venice. We actually thought about naming this town Venice, but we thought that'd be too bad of a joke, but it matches perfectly.
It's Wrightsburg, Missouri, which is a made-up town. It's definitely a change of pace because you've just gotten out of levels where it's crazy, intense combat, so it's like, take a breather and like give you time to take in the surroundings. So this is your first time out of Haven, sort of seeing what the states look like after, Chimeran occupation. It's based a little bit on Louisville because of just all the reference I took from there.
In the Resistance 3 boat level, we actually have this huge climactic bridge crunching sequence that was kind of a technical challenge. We wanted to make sure the bridges felt right, looked right. So she went on location and took some pretty fantastic pictures of the underside of this famous bridge where she's from.
The environmental storytelling was really important to us. Right off the bat, Craig Goodman, one of our environment leads, really took charge and just started coming up with this elaborate backstory about this town that had been evacuated.
We also wanted you to feel lost and sad because we are in a ruined America. And the most optimistic moment in a year is just before Christmas.
Because it really sort of ties it back to like humanity and the sense of humanity and what was once normal and is now like overrun.
And you pick up on this as you go through the town, and it has a lot of character. And there is something there. You can feel this kind of history. One of the really cool things about this backstory is the fact that it resonates and kind of supports the kind of meta story that R3 tells. And that is a group of survivors kind of following them on a almost day-to-day basis as they exist in this fallen apocalyptic world.
And so that kind of story, that kind of feeling of this being a real place, really allowed us all to gel around and make decisions as the level progressed, and to make it feel like a home that people had lived in, and a home that is now lost.
All I wanted to do was anything but World of Warcraft, which is what I'd worked on previously. The test was asking for someone who could draw something for a realistic first-person shooter, and there were implications on the test that was implying kind of thing, and I was thinking to myself, oh man, that's totally what I want to do, man. I'm so geared up for this.
At the time, Sony didn't really have like a premier, like, gangbusters FPS hit, so we were thinking, we were just like, we had lunch and we were like, what if, could that be us?
And we were starting to brainstorm. We get together and we brainstorm frequently about what the story could be, what the kind of the gist of the game was. I think very early on we decided, though, it was clearly about aliens. In the original story, it was all about time travel.
Right, I was going to say it was a big, kind of a big space opera, more of like a science fiction, outer space opera kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And there was this other game called Halo or something that seemed kind of similar at the time.
That one was more of a romantic comedy, so I think we had a distinction.
And that one scene from was kind of what inspired us from the beginning.
With that one scene where like 1,000 enemies are coming over the sand dunes, and you're like, whoa, like what if you could do that in FPS? So that was, that's not a world or a hook or anything, but that was kind of like our idea of what if we could somehow kind of get that kind of quantity, that kind of
there's that kind of spectacle into an FPS.
A lot of people here at the company felt it wasn't grounded. Like there wasn't a whole lot of, I don't know, there wasn't a good foundation for the story. So yeah, time traveling, going to meteors that had big wormholes in them. It didn't give players anything to hold on to.
Yeah. You can't really connect as much.
Exactly.
When did you guys decide to do with the 1950s instead of the alternate history, instead of going like contemporary times or something like that?
Well, it started out as World War I.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And
there were biplanes when I first showed up.
And then I think we realized that it was going to be hard to sell that one too, because World War I is kind of an out there concept, and the weapons weren't as cool.
The science fiction at the time, there wasn't any resistance in War of the Worlds. It was really by luck and by act of God that these guys won. Whereas if you look at more of from World War II on, people got to mount a resistance.
Right, more of a guerrilla warfare and fighting back. Yeah, totally.
Because the idea was that if the Chimera started in Russia and spread across Asia and then across Europe, Britain would probably be the last place that they'd hit, simply because they'd have to cross the English Channel, and we were presupposing that the Chimera weren't very good with water. And Britain had time also to create a great defense network, and we're probably going to be more likely to hold out than any other country. Well, they started out as a lizard-ish race, big lizards with tails.
Geiger-esque for a while there, weren't they?
Were they?
I remember the tentacles. I mean, some of the early drawings. It was really early. It was like kind of Geiger-inspired.
The idea was that it was very lizard-like, but now we had this kind of skull head. What ended up happening was that it looked very duck-like, and it drove me nuts. And so
I still see that image all over the place. By the way,
yeah.
That first Chimera with his mouth open, right?
It was that, and also what was prominently featured in that was the gun, and that drove me nuts too. So literally at lunch, I just started. I took the Chimerian head and I started redrawing it, and then I took the gun and I totally redrew it and said, oh, could we rough it out? Maybe we could show it to Ted. Maybe we can at the next iteration, get this in. And that's how the carbine came out, and sort of the new Chimerian head. It was just me just frustrated at this image. I remember we did a ton of storyboards, and the environment concept artist did some great sort of Top Gun looking aircraft carrier things that was, they're never going to see it.
But our intention originally was to start the story on the aircraft carrier and explain how Hale starts off right before the invasion and has to navigate through the ship, learning about the background on the way, and then ends up getting into a VTOL and leaving. But we couldn't get that level done, so we ended up just using it for a cinematic.
It ended up being a major problem, though, because that was all of our training was in there.
That's true. Yes, that's right.
And it was a big storytelling step piece. So a lot of the story we're going to tell is just going to come across in dialogue through here. And so when we cut that, we lost our training and kind of our introduction to the character and everything. So we had to just find other solutions to all of that.
I remember thinking, I don't know if we're going to be able to get this out on time, but we will. We will somehow do it. And I think everybody kind of felt that way. We just knew that we needed to get it done because there was such a great opportunity.
I think the last 6 to 8 weeks or so in particular, the two of you guys and Mark Cerny were playing the games a lot, and we were just getting a lot of feedback of,
That's right. We went through all the setups, wrote lists and lists of things that needed to be fixed.
You guys did what amounted to a complete rescripting of the game in 2 months.
Resistance 61513 asked about some cut weapons or cut gadgets.
That's the grappling hook, right? Yeah, the grappler.
I remember one of the reasons we cut it, 2 reasons. One, it became an uber weapon, so that if you used it against any enemy, it would be an auto kill. And since it had no ammo, you pretty much could use it on everybody. And the second one was we were worried about people dragging physics objects into awkward places and either getting stuck.
It created a lot of problems.
Yeah.
I think if we had 3 more months, we could have gotten it in. But I mean, as it was, this is a launch title, and we were so close to the wire, just getting everything done. We needed to focus on a few things that were going to be the best, and that one was just okay, we can basically cut 1,000 bugs right now if we don't have this.
So any other? I think it's kind of wraps up the question list. But any other thoughts or stories, funny times, sad times, stressful times that you guys remembered and we didn't talk about?
As we saw more and more of the launch titles and realized that Resistance really did stand out as something unique, it was cool, and it made all the pain worth it.
I remember especially those like from Manchester for the next like 3 levels, just kind of like this amazing experience. Like I couldn't put it down as I was playing it. I'd played it like 100 times.
I think we said it's like, oh, but we wanted to get in this and this and this that didn't get in, and that kind of thing, and yeah, I think I was a little bit bummed, but it's funny now going back and playing it. I replayed it a year or a year and a half ago. It's a really fun game, and it still stands up, I think, really well.
Welcome to a special episode of the Full Moon Show, where we're going to kind of go back and take a look at Resistance 2's development and talk about it now. Guys, this is now, what, a year, almost 2 years later after release. Let's kind of go back to the very beginning. When you were starting Resistance 2, what was the first thing like that you knew you had to do with Resistance 2?
Co-op. Simple. I mean, when we were doing our presentations for Resistance 1 in the very beginning, that was the number one question we got was, why don't you have online co-op? We had co-op, but people wanted to be sure that they could play with their buddies online.
Was Resistance originally a trilogy?
Well, if we want to go back all the way to the beginning, Resistance was a space opera, and we ended up with a story that involved time travel and I think flying ships through big holes in asteroids. And then when we moved back to Earth and decided to set it in this alternate 1950s universe, I don't think we talked about a trilogy. I don't remember.
I don't remember. I think we're just trying to get the first one done.
Yeah, that's true. We're thinking about PlayStation 3 launch.
Exactly.
First-person shooter. We haven't done this in a long time. Let's see if we can actually make a compelling story for one game, right? But just to qualify, I mean, I say this a lot in interviews. We don't ever set out to do a game where the story can't be continued. I mean, we want to create franchises and not just one-off games.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the other focuses, and we're going to get into some of the early decisions that we made. Jeremy Patrick asked on Facebook, how'd you go about choosing which sites and cities would be in the game?
Actually, that's one of the most fun aspects, in my opinion, of beginning the game, is when you have a blank canvas and you start thinking about places you can go. That's a lot of our game. We talked about Ratchet. It's what planets would be really cool to visit.
Yeah.
And then, at least from my memories, we start constructing the story and the gameplay around that. Going from making games in 1 year to 2 years was an attempt to make it a little bit easier, but what we ended up doing was expanding the scope for our games. And so for Resistance 2, it had a massive scope, 60-player multiplayer, 8-player online co-op, really big single-player campaign.
13-hour campaign.
Yeah. And so we bit off a lot, and when we took into account the fact that we lost basically 6 months by starting over with our code base, it did create this frantic pace where we were all just trying to get everything in that we could. Instead of saying from the very beginning, okay, we got 12 big ideas for this game, we're going to make them all work, and we got lots of people, so no problem, let's go.
Everybody run.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think it's super exciting. I think Insomniac's history, though, is frantically making excellent games.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome. It's going to be awesome to see like what we're able to do with 3 years instead of, I mean, the Ratchet games were all made in 1 year cycles.
Yeah.
Now we've shifted to the 2 year, but even that's a small team and a big team. I think that seeing what we can do in 3 years is going to be fantastic.
So let's talk about one of the other kind of big things, because I remember the focus for Resistance 2 was a lot of the things we said were hail and scale.
I think we delivered on scale, for sure. I mean, that was the whole idea behind these bosses.
Leviathan
was a totally unique experience, yeah.
You hadn't, I think, at that point seen anything like that in a first-person shooter. Right. I mean, period. And I don't know if you, even to this point, I don't think you have seen any other shooter attempt something that big.
It made a good E3 demonstration, especially for the Insomniacs, who knew exactly what was going on as I was up there on the stage playing.
I'm Ted Price, President and CEO of Insomniac Games, and this is Resistance 2.
At the time, the Leviathan demo was carefully timed, so that if you messed up, everything would basically come to a grinding halt. And so I was up on stage and we had no backup. It was basically me just playing through the demo, hoping that things were going to go well.
And talking at the same time.
And talking, yeah. And I got stuck on a couch, and I practiced this thing like 100 times, right? And practiced not getting stuck, and I got stuck on the same damn couch, and I was thinking, okay, I have about a second to get unstuck before the game basically doesn't crash, but ends. And it would have been the worst demo in the history of E3 had that happened.
And of course, everyone was in Ratchet, Ratchet conference room at the time watching tag going, oh my god, oh, he's off the couch. She's off the couch.
Yeah, I just felt bad for the environment artist you fired for that.
That's not true. That's not true. That's a joke. The last question, I guess, for all three of you is, looking back on it now, how do you view Resistance 2, and and how has it shaped, I guess, where you're hoping to go with Resistance 3? And you don't have to get too specific about Resistance 3 because we haven't talked about it much yet. But what are kind of the main things you learned and think about when you think about Resistance 2 now?
Wow, you didn't put that one on the list. I didn't think about that. You want to go first?
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
I think focus on a theme and make it work really well is something that I think we wanted to do with Resistance 2 in America, and I think we learned a lot more about how to do that well, and we're taking that ahead to Resistance 3. That's one thing I'll contribute.
Yeah, I think just kind of reining in the ideas a little bit and focusing a little bit more on quality instead of trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Jake? Last chance?
Last chance.
Wax poetic?
I guess for me, Resistance 2 was really a great experience. I mean, I think that, everybody was working on their own thing, and it really felt like we brought it together at the end. I didn't really get a chance to play a whole lot of single player until the end, but when I did, it was really a great experience. And again, we all had this scale, this underlying notion of scale, and that was something that I think permeated each of the modes and kind of gave a consistent feel throughout them that we were pushing size and scale. And I also think, we intentionally pushed the limits of each of the modes, things that had never been done before in either co-op, competitive, or single player. So I think that is something that I'll always be proud of, as far as really not being content with the status quo and trying to do something different and really push the boundaries of what people expect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The only thing I can add to that is I was really happy with how the whole Hale story turned out. I think that from the beginning we were wondering who this guy is, and we set out to make a character with an emotional arc that would create some sort of emotional connection with the person who was playing him. And then we, of course, ripped that emotional connection out at the very end. But to me, it was fully realized. And I hope players appreciated it.
I think, given the amount of questions we get about Hale and R3, I would say that came out. Because if people are asking and care, then that means that there was definitely some emotional attachment during Resistance 2, even though he's dead. Well, that's all for this special retrospective episode on Resistance 2, and we'll be back soon with another interesting episode about something that we'll think up in the near future, because I don't know what it's going to be next time. But stay tuned soon, and we'll be back next time with another episode of The Full Moon Show. Later. A lot of fun. Yeah. Tyler Campbell says, 10,000 kills trophy. Grrr.
This is where I dive under the table and say, not me.
What are you doing? We gotta get out of here.
I'm tired of watching my son die.
The leader of our congregation.
Take the radio too. I'll get the door.
pretend to like it's screen with some hands.
Run! You're a good man, John Harper. You got a pretty mouth, too. Follow the tunnel under the church. I'll be right behind you. Follow the tunnel under the church.
I killed Nathan Hale. After a beer. For a few beers.
If you see that brawler, don't try to fight it. I think the damn thing's invincible. How I would know this information since I did not fight this brawler, I do not know. Let's lose her in the apartments! If I say it louder, she won't notice. We gotta show everyone else how to live. Know what I mean? Now show them how to wait for that level to load.
Hey, Joe. I checked on the garden this morning. Goddamn tomatoes are frozen, but the peas and beans still look good. Now let's go with fucking cucumbers.
They're with God now. Bless their souls. I'm hungry. I don't need to fart! I swear! I would never fart in the booth. In all my years, I've never once farted in the booth. No way.
I'm upstairs, on the west side of the complex, by the fuse box. Hurry! Did I mention you're a moron? What you do? You go get a cup of coffee or something? Get off that bong and keep playing. I need your help, friend. Upstairs by the fuse box. By friend, I mean idiot. Throw it when it opens its mouth. You've got to do the Jaws thing! Start! Wojciechowski Lodski! Lodki Fachai, Loy. And he's really great coming in there, Jimmy, you know what I mean? That's Billy Connolly. What? You should be safe. We should. Oh, fuck. Everyone should be safe. But we're not. It's a crazy world, Joseph. You know how we roll. We bitches and, you know, the vodka. And... Anyway, focus. This ice will be the death of us. Well, the ice is pretty sensitive. If those leapers are any indication, we may not... Ah, shit.
30 seconds remaining. We got all the fucking time in the world. Shit, kids, just keep playing this motherfucker. It's $1 a minute. Take your time. Bomb detonated. Station destroyed. We're fucked.
esto antes de que sus amigos vengan a buscarlos.
Estás atacando a un grupo de saltones. Esos saltones deben ser salvajes, desarrollados por su cuenta, libres de la mente del enjambre. Muy curioso. Habría que estudiar este fenómeno. ¡Nos han visto! Han avarriado el motor. ¡Arranca, maldito barco! ¡Arranca! ¡Vamos! ¡Ya está! ¡Ya está! ¡Cuidado! ¡Atención, cohetes! ¡Detrás de nosotros! Tenemos que perder al Goliat. ¡Aguanta! ¡Unidades de transporte! ¡Largos a la derecha! ¡Cuidado, cohetes! ¡Agárrate! ¡Estás al oído, Joseph! ¡Ve a la cabina!
Quiero encender un fuego, pero temo que el humo revele nuestra posición. Lo intentaremos mañana. Hoy tendremos que estar juntos. Intentad dormir.
Charlie, ¿dónde demonios estás? ¡Cúbreme! ¡Voy a subir!
¡Te cubro! ¡Adelante!
Tenemos problemas. Ellis, soy Charlie. Un merodeador nos tiene inmovilizados en el lado oeste. Intentaremos alcanzaros, pero de momento estáis solos. Maldita sea, Charlie.
¡Socorro! Voy lo más deprisa que puedo. ¿Estás bien, amigo? Mano del Todopoderoso. Ya casi está.
¡Joseph! ¡Por aquí!
No te preocupes por esos autómatas. El que buscamos está en la cafetería. Vamos a ver.
¡Con él! ¡Vas a morir, chaval!
Busca algo. La puerta sigue atascada. Solo un poco más.
¡Ellos, chicos! que ya no hay más.